Next item on the agenda is public presentations. Public presentations are limited to issues that are not included on the meeting agenda. It is intended as an opportunity for the public to give input on relevant planning issues and not intended as a question and answer period. Does anyone wish to come forward and speak at this time? All right, everybody's staying seated, so we'll move forward. Thank you very much. Next item is public hearings. First item for public hearings is 2019-08-01, Sandra D. Eisner. I was going to say, I'm going to butcher it however I do it. A request for a conditional use permit for private use camping. The property is located on Valley Retreat Road in Panhandle Valley Retreat subdivision, identified on tax map 26C, section 1 as parcel 24 and is zoned residential 1. Mr. Windling, that's yours.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. This property is also located in a special flood hazard area, and Mrs. Eisner and her family were made aware that she was required to have a conditional use permit after the FEMA site visit in March. She would like to continue camping with her family on the property in a camper, and the property does have a shed which is used for storage of maintenance and recreational equipment. We did receive comments from the health department. They listed their standard concerns with that, and regarding the portable Johnny on the spot, also to register that information with them. If the Planning Commission is to move this forward, staff recommends the following conditions, which are our standard conditions except for 9. Number 1, the campers are to be kept in a roadworthy condition with valid tags and inspection decals. Number 2, materials associated with the campers are to be stored in a neat and orderly fashion during the time of use and are to be removed from the site when not in use. Number 3, campers shall be on site fewer than 180 consecutive calendar days in any 1 year for recreational use of the property only. Number 4, the applicant shall comply with all Warren County Health Department regulations and requirements. Number 5, no more than 2 major recreational vehicles as defined by Warren County Code Section 180-10B1 or 10 shall be parked, stored, or used on a lot or combination of contiguous lots under the ownership of one property owner. Number 6, this permit shall be reviewed by Warren County Planning and Zoning staff annually for compliance. Number 7, the applicant shall comply with Section 180-40.1 of the Warren County Zoning Ordinance regarding non-commercial camping. Number 8, the applicant shall post property with a lot or parcel number for fire and emergency rescue services and have an emergency egress plan for the removal of the recreational vehicles and portable commode prior to a predicted flood event. And lastly, number 9, the existing shed shall have flood vents and anchoring installed, or it shall be removed within 30 days of the approval of the conditional use permit. This public hearing has been properly advertised. Adjacent property owners have been notified. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and Ms. Eisner is here also. She can be glad to answer.
Does anyone have any questions before we proceed? No? All right, we'll open the public hearing. Does anyone wish to speak for or against this application? And the applicant is welcome to speak, so it's totally up to you. Does anybody say anything at all? All right, seeing nobody come forward, we'll close the public hearing, and it's now up to the commission. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, comments? Pretty much seems straightforward to you all? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move the Planning Commission forward this application to the Board of Supervisors with the recommendation of approval for the conditional use permit request of Sandra Eisner for private use camping with the conditions as recommended by staff.
Second. So a motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. This will be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors for their public hearing process. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is Z 2019-08-01, Warren County Planning Commission, an ordinance to amend section 180-79 of the Warren County Code to identify structures of non-conforming based on their tax or permit history and to permit owners of non-conforming manufactured home to replace the manufactured home with a HUD compliant manufactured home as required by the Virginia State Code. That's a mouthful, and I believe it's Mr. Petty. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so this is a public hearing for a zoning ordinance amendment. Attached, you will find the amendment 18079. We've added section A and section M. It has changed slightly from last month's reading at the advisement of our legal staff. It hasn't become any more restrictive from last meeting, but we have added a line to section A stating that the local government has issued a building permit. The structure was therefore constructed in accordance with the building permit, and upon completion of construction, the local government issued a certificate of occupancy or use permit therefore. Or the owner of the structure has paid taxes to Warren County for such structure for a period of more than the previous 15 years. The structure is not illegal or subject to removal solely due to such nonconformity. Such structure shall be nonconforming. So that first section that we added essentially just states that if they had a legal building permit before, it's even if the use has changed or that code has changed, it's still non-conforming because they did go through that process.
Okay.
We also did a slight amendment to section M. It's still the same, just changed the wording slightly by adding another comparable manufactured home, but other than that, that has stayed the same. We will supply these to the secretary to make sure that they're reflected in the minutes as such.
Okay.
If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. It was properly advertised. And again, if you have any questions, let me know.
Okay. Anybody have any questions at this time? I'll open the public hearing. Does anyone wish to come forward and speak for or against this application? Seeing nobody coming forward, we will close the public hearing. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, comments? I have one, but I just trying to give anybody else. I know sounds like there are minor changes, and Mr. Whitten, you can speak on this, please. Sounds like there are minor changes, but does this in any way affect the advertising? That's my question. Or Ms. Logan, was somebody?
I actually advertised for an additional week, and it made it 2 weeks in the papers with the new language.
So we're
fine.
We're covered in that sense. So
Yes, sir.
that was my only concern, is if we're modifying,
Yeah,
which I'm fine with that.
understand.
I just want to make sure we're covered time-wise with the requirements to advertise.
We actually made the additional amendments right after the last meeting.
Oh,
So
okay.
I was able to then advertise.
Get it going. Okay, I got you. All right. That was my only question, to tell you the truth. So I want to make sure we were covered. So does anybody have any other questions, concerns, comments? I'll take a motion. I'll take a motion too.
Mr. Chairman, finding the proposed zoning ordinance amendment is appropriate for public necessity, convenience, and general welfare and good zoning practice, I move the Planning Commission forward the proposed amendment to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. That ends our public hearings for tonight. Next item is authorization to advertise. The first item for that is R 2019-09-01. How did I say I was going to pronounce Equus? Is that the correct?
Yes.
Equus.
Equus.
I'm going with Equus. We'll go with Equus Capital
Sounds
Partners
good.
Limited. A request to amend the Warren County zoning map and rezone approximately 20.58 acres from agricultural to industrial. The property is located at 6475 Winchester Road and identified on tax map 4 as parcel 45 in the North River Magisterial District. And I believe that's you, Ms. Logan.
This is a request to amend the Warren County zoning map and rezone approximately 20 acres from agricultural to industrial. The property is located on Winchester Road and Winters Court, addressed as 6475 Winchester Road. This is the parcel just north of the jail, and identified on tax map 4 as parcel 45. The applicant is proposing to construct the 324,000 square foot warehouse and distribution facility. They are also requesting a conditional use permit for a building in excess of 50,000 square feet to be located within the county's highway corridor overlay district. I kind of combined my staff reports on these two items.
Sure.
The overlay district spans 1,000 feet from the right-of-way on each side of Route 34522, and it requires a conditional use permit for any building of this size. So any building over 50,000 square feet in size requires this conditional use permit within those limits. The application states that the number of full-time employees will be 100 over 2 shifts, and they're estimating a 12 to 14-month build-out with construction beginning in spring 2020. The applicant submitted a generalized development plan which shows the warehouse, 102 parking spaces for vehicles, and 60 tractor-trailer spaces. The proposed access is to be off of Winters Court to the rear of the property, and the rerouting of the sewer line through the property. The applicant has also submitted a proposed sign and landscaping plan. The future land use map in the comp plan does identify this property to be zoned industrial in the future. It is in the Route 34522 North service area for water and sewer. And let's see, there's a proffer statement that was submitted by the applicant, which includes information on the development and use of the property, including signage, architectural renderings, and landscaping, transportation, and a fire rescue contribution. I've sent the request to VDOT, Town of Front Royal Public Utilities, Warren County Building Inspections, and Rappahannock Electric for their review and comment. Rappahannock did have some comments as to the landscaping that was being proposed. They didn't want it to grow up, so that interfered with their power lines. So we're working in, our staff is working on looking at different options for that we can submit back to the applicant. That still meets our overlay district ordinance.
Right.
And I think that's all I have. Mr. Dunlap is here. He's the engineer for the project, if you have any questions.
Okay. So are we handling both
Well, we'll just
A
go ahead.
and B, or
Let's
we-
just
we're
do the
gonna do them
rezoning
separate?
first.
I'm sorry?
Let's just do the rezoning
Rezoning
first.
Okay, deal with that one first, okay. Because they do overlap, so.
They do, yeah.
But, okay. Alrighty. Well, this is not a public hearing, but does anyone have any questions for Ms. Logan at this time? Is, there's Mr. Wood. Just lost my train of thought, sorry. Winters Court, right? That's the road behind, okay.
Yes, sir.
Is that a public right of way?
It is. It was accepted. I did some research. Mr. Troldress got me some information actually, and it was accepted into VDOT system 2015.
Okay.
And it was with the jail project,
Okay,
actually.
and there's no restrictions for them to gain access from that right of way versus
That's correct.
what that development was originally intended for?
That's right.
Okay.
And I've sent it to VDOT for comment.
Okay.
And they're reviewing it. I've talked with them.
Okay. No, that's fine. No, that's good. Good information. Does anybody have any questions or comments right now?
I'm here.
None here? None nowhere?
Mr. Chairman, I
I'll take a
move,
motion, yeah.
I move the planning commission authorize the proposed rezoning application for advertisement for public hearing.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion carries. The next item for authorization to advertise is 2019-09-01. Equus Capital Partners Limited, a request for a conditional use permit for a building in excess of 50,000 square feet to be located in the Route 34522 corridor, Highway Corridor Overlay District, if I can say it correctly. The property is located at 6475 Winchester Road and identified on tax map 4 as parcel 45 in the North River Magisterial District, and that is also Ms. Logan.
So again, this is the same property that we just had the rezoning request for as well. This is the property that's just north of the jail. It is in the county's highway overlay district, which does require this conditional use permit if you're within that 1,000-foot area from the highway. If you have a building over 50,000 square feet in size, then this conditional use permit's required. The Highway Overlay District ordinance does address different architectural details, such as breaking up the mass of a large building. There's different building material requirements. There's landscaping requirements, so all that will be addressed with the applicant's site plan. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Mr. Dunlap is here as well.
All right. Anybody have any questions at this time? So basically, it doesn't matter the size of the building, it's just 50,000, anything above 50,000 square feet requires a CUP at that point.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just trying to.
Such as, like, Cisco was just at the 1,000-foot mark, just outside of the
Okay.
district, so they did not need the CUP, but
This
the
is-
jail is over 50,000 square feet, and they did need a CUP.
See, okay, that was the next thing I was gonna ask you. You wouldn't have to know what the jail was, would you? That's been years
It's
ago.
over 50,000 square feet.
Okay. All right, standard answer. So
I don't know
figured
the
that
square
much, but-
footage off the top of my head.
Yeah, I figured that much, so, okay. That's no problem. I'm pretty much fine with that. I just want to make sure it's screened and landscaped correctly from view of 522, in my opinion, but that's just me. So, anybody have any further questions or comments?
So that's basically, when they come out of Winter's Court to get to 522, they're going to take a left on Fairground, and then Family Dollar's going to be on their right.
Yeah,
So the truck traffic is doubled.
they gotta come around. Yeah.
That'll
Well,
be the way in and out Fairground Road to Winter's
So
Court.
it's fairground. So that's a whole VDOT thing. That's a whole transportation. That's a TIA
Right.
analysis that they got to do. So.
They've submitted the trip generation numbers in their community impact statement, which goes to VDOT.
That's a large, 300 plus thousand square feet of warehouse. So
324.
it's large, so it's a lot of trucks. But they gotta have a TIA to back it up, and VDOT's gotta approve that.
Yeah.
And then we gotta evaluate the TIA as well.
Well, there's no resident, there's one house that's rented, I think, there. And there's another house on 522, kind of in front of the concrete plant. That's further down.
I mean,
I was
there's a house
concerned
on,
about the truck traffic, but I'm not gonna hold it up.
yeah. There's a house on the property today, because I drive by there every day going
Yeah.
back and forth to work, so.
Right.
And so I looked at it, I've looked at it the past several days as I've gone back and forth to work, and there's a house there today that people live in, so that'll be
That's-
taken out.
Right across from Family Dollar.
Well, on this property,
No, this is
there's a
next to the jail.
house.
Next to the
Coming up
jail.
522,
Yeah.
right next.
Oh,
to the jail.
yes.
As you're going north on
Right.
522 towards Family Dollar.
Right, right.
Just short of that.
There's
but
a
it's
couple
right-
houses over
There's
there.
a couple,
Yeah.
but that one house is this property, and that'll be taken out, and if all this goes through, then the building will be constructed, and so on and so forth. But access is a key point, so we have to wait and see what the TIA says and what VDOT says, and address their concerns and make sure they're happy before we go. So we gotta have that information before we can make a decision ultimately, but.
And down from Winter's Court is a county-owned building across from the water tower.
Correct.
The EDA is,
The EDA owns a building over there,
it's currently.
yeah. It was an old residence, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, we currently have a letter of intent on that, so we're in the process of selling that, EDA's in the process of selling that property.
So, yeah.
So do we have any information on number of trucks going in and out of that when they applied? Did they give you anything on that?
Well, in their community impact statement, which was in the rezoning piece, just a second.
No, it's in
They had, I think it was 500, what was that? That was in my staff report. So they were saying 544 average daily trips. Now, I don't know if they've broken it down between truck traffic and vehicular traffic.
Because you're talking about.
Well, the
100
trucks are gonna be the majority because the building is basically a warehouse.
Well, you've got 100
There is office
employees.
space, but,
Yeah, they're saying 100
well, there is some.
employees.
I know, but there is some, but the bulk of it's trucks.
Majority will be
They were
trucks.
saying,
Which, I mean,
yeah, 60 parking spaces.
but that's what
for
the
trucks.
TIA would give us. That, see, the
And I
TIA,
don't know if they're gonna do a full-fledged traffic impact analysis, or if they just give the counts to VDOT. I don't know if they require.
something like this, as big as this thing is, I would think it would be a TIA in my mind. Because you got winners coming out on Fairground Road, all right, that intersection, which is across from Family Dollar's truck intersection, and right near the water towers, all right there. And so if they're generating that much truck traffic, I hate to say it, but is that another signal or not?
Down
You know,
the
Is
street.
it that bad, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm getting at. So we almost need to see a TIA that tells us what's going on and how 522 and Fairground intersection operates with this traffic involved with Family Dollar's traffic and with Ferguson right down the road.
It's
So it's
Ferguson,
all gotta be-
Interbay, all of that's down there.
Yeah, so all that's gotta be figured out to an extent. In my mind, there should be at least a TIA that goes to VDOT that says this is what it is.
So I'll absolutely have comments from VDOT by the public hearing,
Oh,
because
sure,
they've had this since right after our last meeting. This came in.
Right.
This might have even it came in right around our last meeting.
Yeah. But, I mean, in my mind, that's what needs to happen, but if VDOT says they're happy, so.
Right.
How much I can do after that?
Did they say any, is there any indication on equipment that's gonna be in this warehouse other than forklifts and stuff?
I don't think
I
they
didn't
mentioned
see
that,
anything.
but
I might have missed it.
I don't remember
Not a
seeing
public hearing,
that.
but would you mind if he came up and spoke to the engineer?
Yeah, that's up to the engineer.
Yeah, he might know.
I was gonna say, if you don't mind, I mean, it's not a public hearing,
Yeah, no
but
problem.
if you wouldn't mind giving us a little bit more information.
Sure.
Might answer some questions.
I'll give you what I can.
And if you can give your name and,
Yeah,
and
sure.
information, thank you.
Yeah, Denny Dunlap with Dice Engineering. I'm the civil engineer designer for the project. As far as the equipment goes, it's just basically a standard high cube warehouse, forklifts. Depending on the possible tenant, sometimes they get a bit more automated within the warehouse itself, but all in all, it's a typical distribution warehouse facility.
So you have various tenants in there or one single tenant?
The way it's designed, they typically prefer to design these for multiple tenants, maximum of 2. So that's how we would design it. Now, it could be 2, it could be 1, just kind of depends on the circumstances.
Yeah.
And as far as I think someone mentioned office space, the office spaces are usually pretty small in these, about 10,000 square
Yeah, I was
feet.
gonna say they're relatively minimal.
Basically in each far corner of the building for each tenant, so.
Yeah. And the rest of the building is basically warehousing and truck docks and all that fun stuff.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yep.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, sir, appreciate it. Good information, thank you. Anything else? I mean, we're just authorization to advertise.
Yes, I understand.
So, but it's nice to get information when we can, so. I'll take a motion if there's anybody and everybody's happy, that's fine.
Mr. Chairman, I move the Planning Commission authorize the proposed conditional use permit request for advertisement for public hearing.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll have a public hearing next month. Next item is Z 2019-09-01 Warren County Planning Commission. An ordinance to amend Warren County Code Section 180-49.3 microbreweries to include usual and customary activities associated with microbreweries and amendments to this section in compliance with state code regulations to amend section 180-21 to add activities and events associated with microbreweries other than those that are usual and customary for microbreweries throughout Virginia. Again, that's another, Joe, you keep doing good stuff. So that's another mouthful. So
Same
Mr. Perry, no, sorry, Mr. Petty, that's you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attached, you'll find a proposed amendment to section 18049.3 and the addition of 18021D41 to the Warren County zoning ordinance. This section of the zoning ordinance was originally added in 2013, and since then there has definitely been an increased interest in local breweries and their impact with agritourism, which was another code that we recently added to the ordinance.
Okay.
The proposed amendments are similar to those that are already approved with farm wineries that's in the zoning ordinance, and it allows events associated with the use. It will also allow events that are larger through a conditional use permit, again, similar to that of farm wineries currently. The attached proposed amendment and staff recommendation is included with this. We did look at the state code, and they state that local ordinances must be reasonable and take into account the economic impact of these events. So that's what we kind of based it off of. And again, we copied and pasted from farm wineries essentially and edited as needed. If you look at the amended section, again, we'll provide these to the secretary to make sure that they're in the minutes correctly. The CUP would come into place when it's going to be hosting events more than 100 people. Similar to that, again, farm wineries, because that's the greater impact on the public safety and welfare in the community. We did amend in 18049.3 some of the sections, you'll see it highlighted. We did take out the seat capacity because some of these are much larger, and as more come on, again, they're going to be regulated to under 100. We did change the hours to reflect that as to match it from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then we also removed the section in regards to Warren County building inspections, as some of these structures may fit actually agricultural exemptions, and which would have to follow those procedures through the zoning office. Again, we added in all these other sections I'll forego reading this evening, but they address noise and specific events and parking. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
All right, thank you, sir.
I think section H needs to be rewritten.
Okay.
It's very confusing, and Taryn agrees, so.
David and I had talked before the meeting, and we actually were missing the words "maybe" after gathering. So private personal gatherings may be held by the owner of a licensed microbrewery. I think maybe we just cut it off there. Private personal gatherings may be held by the owner of a licensed microbrewery.
Yes.
Or we could delete that altogether, H, I feel. I mean, we have it in here because it's our farm winery ordinance.
Yeah, it probably
The
needs to
farm
come out.
winery ordinance is very detailed.
Yeah,
The state code is very detailed.
right.
Um,
I mean,
We could just put private personal gatherings may be held by the owner of a licensed microbrewery.
all right, so does that mean they have to have a conditional use permit for that, though?
So they only need the conditional use permit for gatherings over 100 people.
Right.
That's,
Even if it's
that's not what
private?
it says there. It says,
Well, for these other things.
I'm saying, it says for any
Yeah.
live musical
Right.
concert, beer festival, entertainment
Yeah,
festival.
I was gonna read all those.
But it doesn't say you have to have over 100 people.
Well, it's assemblies of more than 100 persons at any one organized event kicks in that conditional use permit.
So I guess the question would be for like a live musical concert, if only 20 people show up, is a CUP still required?
I think so.
And is it only if you charge admission
Because
or
of the amplification.
just if you have amplified music?
It's kind of confusing.
I
If it's
think
amplified, you
that
have to have a CUP.
Because for instance, I guess,
Well, she's getting
You can
the,
have an amp and have a party at home. You don't have to have a CUP for that. I mean, you know.
well, then it'd be a personal gathering.
Yeah.
So
Well,
then
then it'd be a
you wouldn't
personal
need a.
Right, and
But
that's
this is
why
out of business.
H is
it's only if you're
confusing.
charging.
That's why this is out of business, so.
So perhaps it should be events where you charge admission. But I guess some of the events, I mean, like her Sunflower Festival, she
That's
does
free.
that. That's free, and we
Mhm.
require a CUP for that. So maybe it should just be based more on the anticipated number of people that'll be attending. Would require a CUP.
Well, I just
may
think
make more
it's
sense.
just confused, the H is very confusing.
We could just do assemblies of more than 100 people at any one organized events require CUP.
I think that would make more
You just want
sense.
to do that? So if someone has a farm brewery and they're wanting to do weddings or large gatherings of over 100 people,
So this
Then
would
they
be
get
the
the
brewery
CUP.
regulation.
Right.
Right.
so we could take out A through D and just do E only, assemblies of over 100 people requires a conditional use permit. And she's getting that for that purpose. She wants to have weddings and events of more than 100 people.
Right.
But that might make it just easier to understand.
And let me just bring up in the case of the Mid-House when they went through, they were having weddings for personal, as a personal event. Would that be something that would kick off the CUP if that personal
You
wedding
can have
over
a wedding
100?
for your family member.
Okay, over
We don't
100 or,
regulate that.
okay, so that, okay,
It's if you're charging.
okay, just to clarify.
Yeah, if you're hosting it and you're charging a fee, so, okay.
Right. People are gonna rent out her facility for
For that,
weddings.
and she's
Yeah, 'cause-
hosting.
And it's part of
whoever it is
her,
that hosts, yeah.
right, and it's part of her microbrewery business.
Right.
Yes,
And I
And that's part of
understand
the
that.
event.
That's why this doesn't seem to fit, because
Yeah.
it said
No, I
which,
understand.
for which nothing is.
We've been talking, we've
and the,
talked
Yeah.
and the
about that.
microbrewery is part of the event as well, basically, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so, because they're only
Because it's
drinking
part-
wine.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, beer is
Yeah,
part
I
of.
think
It's
they're-
part of the event that you're hosting, so,
Mhm.
and you're getting
Yeah,
paid
they're
to do
together.
it.
Yeah,
So
you're
that's,
selling beer or something, you're
Yeah.
not giving it away.
that's a whole combined event, so, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just
So
take
do you just
H
wanna
out.
take, we
I
can
mean,
take
it's
H out.
private, personal gathering. That's like your house. And
Yeah,
it says
that's-
if they live on there,
Yeah,
Yeah, that's one thing.
That's one thing, yeah, but
You're getting paid to
certainly
do it,
hope
that's
you're not
another.
selling beer to people in your house.
right.
Why not?
Why not, Ralph?
Well,
I mean, we can take
if they're
H
related, you
out,
might, you might
I
want.
mean,
we can take H out, that's fine with me.
That's fine.
I think
I'm fine
that
with
it just
And then we
it
can-
confuses the issue.
If you
I
wanna
think.
just take out all these other categories and just do the assemblies of more than 100 people at any one organized event, and then that would kick in the
I
conditions.
mean, I'm fine with the other stuff, it's just H.
Well, that's a good question. If a live musical concert was just gonna have 20 people, are we requiring a CUP? I mean,
It depends on how loud they are.
that's a great question. So,
Well,
I
you're-
think that it
Ah,
would, it
does
makes
that.
sense just to allow anything under 100 people by right.
Yeah.
Even
And
if
then
20
if it's
people show
over
up,
100
they're
people,
not
then you get
gonna
the conditional use permit.
But
Yeah,
That makes
because,
sense.
and also in the code, in section K, it does address amplified outdoor music. So if they do have amplified outdoor music under 100 people, they do have requirements that they must meet for decibel. And we also, the county has a noise ordinance.
Right.
Again, that will address that if it's a smaller associated event.
Okay.
Now, one I heard you mention kind of brought to mind a little bit, when you was talking about how much more detailed it is for wineries than it is microbreweries. There's a place over in Fauquier that is both. And I didn't know if there'd be some way of, making the language so that you're not having to go through a whole bunch of hoops if someone,
Good question.
Does one or the other.
wants to do
Put them in the
both.
same
Or both,
category.
and, yeah, one or the other, or both combined, whatever.
Yeah,
Then it's all covered.
I mean, they are a winery and tap house.
Good question.
That is a good question.
Farm wineries are allowed by right. And then it only kicks in the conditional use permit for the over 100 people. And we have these categories listed too in that ordinance. Maybe we bring back the farm winery ordinance and review it. It's been a while.
It
I mean, it's been since the mid 2000s.
Thing too, it might not hurt to reach out to Fauquier to see how they handled it.
Okay, yeah. I did that when we first did our ordinance and they've been reviewing theirs for years, it seems, because
Yeah.
they were getting so many new
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah, there's a lot of them
Yeah.
over there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But yeah, I can definitely do that.
Okay, that's all comment I've got.
Okay.
So do we want to revise this or advertise for a public hearing? Do we want to?
You can, I mean, you could advertise it with the changes you suggested, and I'll make the changes before we advertise, so then it'll be on file.
Okay.
So how do you want to present this motion?
I move the planning
Well, I
commission.
had another
Whoa,
question.
whoa, whoa, hold up.
Hold on.
I was waiting.
Go ahead.
Mr. Rinaldi.
On the next section down, microbrewery, on A, agricultural products, How are we assured that, or what percentage of the products grown on the farm are used in the brewing process? Do we know anything
Didn't we
about?
have that at one point? We got rid of
So
it.
We had
in
that
her,
at one point for
We
so,
got rid of it,
We
didn't
had
we?
that at one point for hops, but then the General Assembly
Changed
issued
it.
something that, overrode us, so we
Yeah.
matched what the General Assembly had.
as we originally said in her conditional use permit for the microbrewery, that at least 5% of the hops utilized in the microbrewery operation shall be grown on the farm.
Yeah.
And that was within 3 years of the conditional use permit. I mean, she does utilize her hops, I know.
And that's fine.
In
Oh,
the,
yeah, that's fine.
She uses her herbs too.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's
I
fine.
mean, she's definitely a true farm winery. I don't know how you,
I remember we had
For
a
any-
discussion and it was kind of hard to regulate because of the
I
grains.
would
Exactly.
think it
Just
would
had to be
be.
a certain amount and blah, 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 but then
Farm
Richmond came back
wineries are
and,
pretty strict, their code, their state
Yeah.
code, but the hops are a different story.
and Richmond came back with a different, or a final version that we had to
Yeah,
adopt.
we had to, we
And
adopted
vacate
the
the
General
percentage.
Assembly's version.
Yeah, and vacate the percentage thing, so. if- Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I think, at least we think.
That's, yeah.
So.
Yeah, so there's no
Does that answer your
percentage.
question?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? Do we have a motion or modified motion or
Okay,
upside down motion? Okay.
upside down. I move the planning commission authorize the proposed zoning text amendment for advertisement for public hearing, removing section 8, H. Can't even talk to me.
And do you want to leave the uses
Is that the
the
final?
same?
What do you think, what, the,
A through D.
A through D, do you want to get rid of?
A through D?
A through G?
And just leave E as the only one? I think that might be more clear.
Yes,
Yeah.
removing, what, section D, A through D. Is that correct?
We understand.
They
So-
understand.
We got
In
it.
section
Okay.
D, removing
Okay, so the motion
A
is,
through D.
the motion is to forward it on, or, I mean, approve it for authorization to advertise. Remove sections A through D and H.
Under section D.
Yeah, I understand.
Under section D, on the front.
Section D, remove paragraph H.
Agricultural, paragraph D, whatever you want to call it.
It would be D 43, A through D, removing this section.
D 43.
D 43, A through D.
43.
Okay,
A through.
okay, for that, so you're.
Removing that and section,
In section
H.
H of 49.3. Is
yes.
that correct? So is that the
Is that,
motion?
is that what we want to do? I
That's-
think that's what we want to
I'm
do.
taking motions, that's all I do.
That's the motion.
So we're taking, just to clarify, just so we don't have any confusion, we have a motion on 180-21, item D, 43, to remove A through D. Mr. Petty, does that sound correct?
Sounds correct.
Okay, then we go down to 180-49.3, and we are going to remove item H.
Correct.
Does that sound correct? Does that
Yes,
entail your motion?
that's my motion.
That's your motion, okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I guess not.
Have you all,
I'll second.
I was gonna say, have you all followed it, so I'm just trying to make sure you all understand, so. We have a motion and a second. I just want to make sure we're painfully clear on what we're doing, so. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion carries. And Mr. Petty,
Thank you.
that's what you got.
Thank you.
Appreciate your efforts on everything, so. For the next item, I have to make a quick statement. I need to abstain from this because related to the Backroom Brewery building itself, I was the engineer that designed the on-site sewage disposal system. So, and I've been out the property and I did all that kind of stuff. So with that said, I am now deferring the meeting to the Vice Chairman, Mr. Myers, and let him roll with it from here.
Okay,
And I defer. So,
all right.
thank you very much.
Okay, this is advertisement for public hearing, conditional use permit that 2019-09-02, Backroom Brewery LLC, events and activities associated with the microbrewery. Ms. Logan?
Billy Clifton with the Backroom Brewery is requesting a conditional use permit in order to use her brewery facility to host large events such as weddings, reunions, company outings, birthday parties, and other large events. The property is located on Ridgemont Road off of Reliance Road. The property is approximately 20 acres in size, is zoned agricultural, and located in the North River Magisterial District. In your packet, you have a statement of justification from Ms. Clifton. She explains that she wishes to utilize the 8,000 square foot facility that was recently constructed on her property for larger events. She continues to use her other structure for her brew pub restaurant. She has seating in the new building that she uses for beer tastings for the microbrewery. There currently is not a listed use in the agricultural zoning district that would allow events in conjunction with a farm brewery. That's the ordinance that we were just discussing, adding a use that would allow this conditional use permit. Again, this would allow events of up to 100 people to be conducted on the property by right, and it requires a conditional use permit for events of more than 100 people. And then we took out the rest of the uses, so that would be just the basis for the CUP. I have sent this request to outside agencies and will wait to recommend conditions for the permit prior to the public hearing on this request. She does, on the property, she has several conditional use permits. She has a garden center, Sunflower Cottage, and then the brew pub, Backroom Brewery, and then the microbrewery also. I've sent this to the Warren County Health Department, Building Inspections, VDOT, Fire Marshal, and the Sheriff's Department. And again, I'll have comments prior to the public hearing. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And Ms. Clifton is not here tonight. She'll be here for the public hearing.
Thank you. Comments? One comment I have, you'd think that if we built an 8,000 square foot building, you'd get this in order first.
Well, she can use it for her microbrewery seating, not the events. So she could use it for beer tastings, everyday microbrewery
All right.
uses. But for larger events, she does need a conditional use permit.
So it wasn't used to store the hops?
No, sir.
She used
I'm just wondering, it's a 20-acre parcel, how much space do you need to grow the hops? Because you're running out of space on this lot.
Well, she actually has a good amount of room behind this facility. This would be a good site visit too, honestly. Behind the new facility, she has all of her hops. She has the whole back field. She actually owns another 20-acre parcel in the back. So it's really 40 acres, but this conditional use permit is just going to be for the front 20. So she does actually own more property, but there's a huge area in the back where she has her she has a brew festival each year. She has she has an herb festival. There is a large area back behind the brew pub facility. So she does have a lot of room on the property. She's talked about a lot of different uses over the years, including maybe some camping, but right now she hasn't applied for anything else. But she does have an additional 20 acres.
Okay.
As if she would ever want to expand, she still owns that.
All right.
Anything else? Motion,
Mr. Chairman, I move the planning commission authorize the proposed conditional use permit request for advertisement for a public hearing.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Abstain? Yes, sir. Thank you. We'll forward it on. All right. For a public hearing. Mr. Stickley, chair is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Next item on the agenda is commission matters, and we go to commission members first. Mr. Rinaldi, what do you have for us?
I was wondering, there's, the Front Royal Little League football program was soliciting donations up at the entrance to Lowe's and Walmart, that area up there. And they kind of took the place of the guy that's always sitting there with his help sign.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so then I started noticing more and more of this going on. And I'm wondering that perhaps the reason, I was told the reason that the supervisors didn't want to ban panhandling was because it would affect the fire departments when they fill
Right,
the
when they do their boot drive, yeah.
So, when thinking about this, the guy that's on the corner over there by Lowe's, I know where he lives, he's in the farms, and it doesn't look like there's any reason for this. Well, I guess what I'm asking is, would it be a good idea to require a permit for panhandling? And then in that way, the little leagues and the fire departments and all could pay a minimal fee for a panhandling permit so that we get some of these folks out of here. It's kind of the distraction.
Y'all are flipping through books, and that's the reason I'm pointing at you, so I apologize. Do you have something?
Mr. Witten can help me out with this one, as you may
We
know.
do have a
We do have a peddling and
solicitor.
soliciting. Yeah.
If you're going door to door, you'd have to go to the sheriff's office, register, and pay a permit fee. But we could look, the reason why we didn't ban panhandling was because you can't discriminate, so we would have to ban it altogether. And the fire department wanted to continue to do their boot drives.
Okay.
So that's why we didn't ban it, but we could look into doing a permit. Basically, you come. I know the gentleman you're talking about, he has some kind of medical issue where he has very expensive medicine he has to buy each month. So I know he came in and talked to me one time, and he said that's why he's panhandling. But as far as as long as they're not in the road, if they're in the road, then it's a VDOT issue. If they're blocking the right of way, then VDOT basically wants them charged under the state code for blocking the right of way. But as long as they stay on the sidewalk, technically they're not encroaching on the right of way.
He tends to
What about if
sit
they're sitting in the median?
Yeah, he tends to sit in the median on a concrete.
So if you're sitting in the median, you're not
You're not
blocking the
blocking.
flow of traffic. So there was a case out in Henrico.
Flow of traffic, but there is a safety issue.
Well, there's a case out in Henrico County where they tried to block it countywide, and the Fourth Circuit, or maybe in the federal court, said basically you need a traffic study showing that the intersection's so busy. For everywhere where you prohibit panhandling, you need a traffic study showing that there's so many traffic incidents because of this issue. So I think, for instance, we could probably prohibit it at the Crooked Run intersection because of all the traffic, because of all the people trying to panhandle there, but it'd be a lot harder to prohibit it elsewhere, like Blue Ridge Shadows intersection or somewhere else where there's not as much traffic. So I think that's kind of where the case law is now. Some counties have prohibited countywide, but I think with that federal court opinion, it makes it a little harder. But we could look into doing permits, and you have to come in and get a permit. That would at least stop the out-of-town people, because I'm sure there's some people who just go town to town and panhandle at intersections. And that would at least, stall that. It would be more local, so it would be panhandling. Our office can look into that.
Because some of those folks have gone over to the Walmart corner and the Lowe's corner on the south end of the store. It's it seems like people have, if residents in Warren County are panhandling for medicine like this man, and I have to apologize for my comments earlier, I didn't know it was a medical thing, but there's got to be programs that he can get some assistance on rather than sitting out there in the hot sun panhandling. He could stand up and try to go get a donation from somebody and pass out. He looks very frail, to be honest with you. So it's kind of a safety issue for him and his medical condition, I guess.
And anybody driving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you come down through there, the way they travel on that
Roll
road.
down through that, yeah.
But I can pass it on to the new county attorney to look into that.
Yeah.
Or perhaps when my assistant county attorney gets back from maternity leave, she can research it a little more.
There's probably somebody else, some other county that's already put this in, you know, I'm sure.
I
we're
know
not the
Frederick
first one
County
thinking.
just banned panhandling. I think Clark County just banned panhandling as well, countywide. But I know that right now there's not really an appetite for that because of the fire department.
All right.
So
That's fine.
Well, that's what I say,
It's understandable. I mean,
You could ban it and require the fire department to, maybe panhandling by permit only. So
Yeah,
let the
right.
fire
well, you
department
can't
fill it out every
you
year.
can't just allow one group to panhandle. That would be discrimination.
well, no, but
Not only that, but if they apply for a permit, is what I was getting at.
So you could apply for permits. That would be fine.
right.
Yeah.
is that all you have, sir? All right.
That's all I have.
Mr. Myers, you got anything for us?
Not this month.
All right, I don't either. Ms.
I don't
Nelson?
have anything.
Okay. You got everything on?
Get the office.
Been through county, been through commission members, now we're down to the county attorney.
So this is my last meeting. I've enjoyed working with y'all over the last almost 10 years. Not sure who the new county attorney will be or on an interim basis for your next meeting. The board of supervisors is looking at bids Tuesday night and they'll pick a interim law firm to basically represent the county. And they've advertised for the full-time position and probably that'll be 3-4 months out. Probably after the first of the year, they'll have a new county attorney. And then Caitlin will be back on October 28th. So I don't know if she'll cover the planning commission meetings or not, but she'll be back from maternity leave then.
Okay.
So, but I've enjoyed working with y'all and I'll still be up here on the weekends until we sell our house. So.
Well, it's been a pleasure and your input has been highly regarded. We appreciate it.
I wish I could have stayed
We're sorry to see you go.
through December just to say UVA finally beat Virginia Tech, but I'll just have to email y'all.
We'll deal with that later. Don't worry.
'Cause I think this is
about that.
finally our year.
We'll
I think
do
this
it.
is the year will happen. So I wish I could have been here to.
I heard the same thing
To
last year.
gloat.
Don't worry, we'll find a way to deal with that, no matter where you are. But we appreciate all your input and you've been highly valued and highly regarded, and thank you very much. Planning Director, Ms. Logan.
Yes, the planning department echoes that. We will miss working with you. Let's see, some updates. We do have several new applications coming in next month as well. It's really been busy lately. So look for those. Crooked Run West resubmitted their proposal. They're requesting to rezone the first 53-acre land bay from commercial to suburban residential, and then leave the remaining commercial, which is about 50 acres as it is, and then leave the agricultural land, which is about 50 acres as that is. So they're now looking at dropping, you've probably read this in the paper, but they're looking at dropping the revenue sharing funding from VDOT and privately funding the bridge and the road just into that first land bay. So the road will not connect now to Rittenhour Hollow Road. And they're looking at 600 apartments and 150 age-restricted units in that 53 acres.
Does that come back to the commission then?
So it will not. The Board of Supervisors ruled not to send that back to the Planning Commission, so they're just going to have a public hearing at their level.
Okay.
And I'm not sure when that will be because we're gonna wait for agency comments. I've already sent it out for comments to,
That's what should
All
have
the
happened
outs-
first time, but yeah.
so to all the outside agencies. So, right, when the planning commission had their last public hearing, we didn't have VDOT comments
Right.
yet. So the board of supervisors will have all the comments. So.
Okay.
Have they updated their proffers?
They have not yet. So the proffers will need to match what they're
The
proposing.
current, yeah, the new development proposal, yeah,
So I do not have those yet.
yeah.
I hope they're better than the last ones, if they're going to consider them. We'll see.
So I'll do a new staff report and I'll keep the commission updated.
Okay, thank you.
I want just a few more things, sorry.
Sure, no,
So Taco Bell's continuing, we approved their lights and their signs should be approved this week. So they're under construction and the Marriott has opened. I just received a site plan today in the planning department for the old Capital One Bank building, which is the corner.
Oh, yeah.
To demolish that. The owners are requesting to demolish that, as they were before. But this time it's gonna be for a multi-tenant building. It's three tenants. And several are proposed as restaurants. So they're on the plan as all restaurants, but I'm not sure all free spaces will be.
Okay.
So that actually does not come to the commission because it's a conditional use permit for the Riveton Common Shopping Center. So I sent that out to the town today for the water and sewer, and it went to VDOT, and it's to building inspections for the ENS. So that'll be moving forward. So, a lot going on.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Planning staff. Mr. Windley.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Planning Commission, since our last meeting, I've attended a FEMA-sponsored training on the community rating system. They did a thorough review of the coordinator's manual and provided us with a lot of information. So we will continue to move forward with hopefully becoming accepted into that program. Part of that will be reviewing our ordinance and some possible amendments to that ordinance, which we hope to see in the next few months. And we continue to reach out as a community outreach to people in the floodplain to provide them some information on some of the structures, permitting, and that kind of thing. And we will have a few applications for Board of Zoning Appeals, and I think Mr. Petty will address those. Thank you.
So as Mr. Winley mentioned, the BZA's been busy this year, and we just wrapped up an appeal for structures within the floodplain, and that has kind of brought up discussions about some more text amendments, possibly to the floodplain ordinance, possibly to accessory structures, so you may be seeing some amendments for those. And we've also will see a few variance applications going to the BZA for structures within the floodplain. So the next few months, BZA might be having meetings. Other than that, I have been still attending the community development block grant with the town. Ms. Logan actually went this past month for me, but we're continuing to stay involved with Mr. Beam as well for building inspections as the county reps on that. So if you guys ever have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for that project as well. And business as usual.
There we go. All right, sir, thank you. Thank you both. Anyone have anything else to add? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.